Welcome into the Awesemo.com NASCAR Live Before Lock show as we're here to get you ready for tonight's NASCAR All Star Race. Of course, be taking place in Texas. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. As always, I am joined by Chris Pennell. We are sponsored by PrizePicks. Talk about PrizePicks props later on in the show. Of course, this All-Star Race will be kicking off tonight, 8 o'clock. The All-Star Open kicks off here in 30 minutes from now, so we know we have some drivers who will be in this field that are not currently in the field. So we'll break this one down for you here. Of course, as always, Chris, great to be talking to you here on a Sunday afternoon. I guess that's kind of like the first unique part about this race of you really can't build lineups on DraftKings right now because you don't have the complete field.
Yeah, what's up, Jason? Looking forward to today's show. I'm kind of liking these evening races, and yeah, we have a lot to look forward to. We have the open races taking place in just about a half hour, so we'll be kind of live breaking that down as it happens, because as we know right now, like you just mentioned, over on DraftKings, they have not yet put the starting positions out yet because I believe they're waiting for these open race drivers to finalize the spots. We have 3 guys advancing. They are the winners from stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. And then we have the fan vote winner that'll get mixed in as well. Over on FanDuel, don't have to worry about it. They're not adding those drivers in, but for DraftKings, we're kind of playing a waiting game.
Yeah, literally, when we talk about FanDuel slate, all I have to do is look at my sheet and know the drivers I have highlighted are drivers who are not in the FanDuel slate. So, of course, they'll be a part of this open, which for those who are not aware of what's going on, as Chris mentioned, you got 3 stages. Stage 1 is 20 laps. Winner advances to the All-Star Race. All laps, green and yellow, will be counted. The leader at the end of stage 1 is eligible to participate in the All-Star Race. In stage 2, that'll also be 20 laps, which include the remaining eligible competing cars. The leader at the end of stage 2 is eligible to participate in the All-Star Race. And the final stage will be 10 laps. It will include the remaining eligible competing cars. Only green flag laps will be counted in the final stage. And of course, the winner of that stage will be eligible to participate in the All-Star Race. And then, of course, when you look at the format of tonight's All-Star Race, so you've got stage 1, that'll be 25 laps. Stage 2, 25 laps. Stage 3, 25 laps. And the final stage will be 50 laps. And, they'll talk about the motivation of this race. Well, Chris, the motivation is simple. It's called $1 million.
Right. It's just like why we play DFS. The motivation is money, and they have money on the line tonight. So they are going to be motivated to win this race. It's not like the Pro Bowl or the NBA All-Star game where they're just kind of out there having fun. We have some real money on the line tonight.
And when we talk about roster construction, and obviously we'll see here in 30 minutes when the open races will start here, but we talk about roster construction and of course, Dominators is obviously something we talk about every week. We do got some Dominator points, but not a ton of Dominator points out there.
Yeah, just about under 30 Dominator points available to us. And, with caution laps, it can always get taken away a little bit. For me personally, I'm not really building a Dominator group for this race. Would I like to have at least one Dominator per lineup? Sure, but I don't think it's the end of the world if I don't have everybody starting inside the top 5 because the lack of laps, all the stages that we have, some of these guys that are starting from 10th to 18th or whatnot, they could easily get up front. I just don't think it's going to be, a complete focal point to get Dominators in my lineup. Would I like them in there? Sure, but not a deal breaker.
And of course, one thing we do know is that the top 20 drivers, we know where they're starting at in terms of that. But, as you think about roster construction, and obviously, we'll, place differential out there and obviously the salary aspect of it here. What's kind of, in terms of everyone that's watching us, what's kind of your take on how to build lineups today?
Yeah, so for cash games, for me personally, I'm going to roster Kyle Busch. And then for the most part, it's going to be pretty heavy in the place differential because with Kyle Busch, I plan on him winning stage 1, which means he's going to be set to start first when stage 4 happens. And, theoretically, you would think he's got the best chance to win this race. So that's kind of what I'm game planning in for cash games. And since he's starting on the pole and we don't have that many downer points, I want to mix in a lot of place differential with them. So getting guys like Denny Hamlin, Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott, Tyler Reddick, if he happens to make it in, which I'm planning on from the open, that's going to be the way that I'm going to strategize for cash games. Now, when it comes to tournaments, I do not mind getting closer to the front. If you want to make a lineup with guys like Kyle Busch, Chastain, Byron, Blaney all together, I am fine with that because we kind of saw like last week where a lot of the guys started up front, kind of stuck around up front, and that was the optimal way to go.
And that Blaney price tag, we'll get into his actual price here, but that I know I was watching a video you did. You talked about that price point stuck out to you, especially the fact of, and you bring up the fact of why you like Kyle Busch of, if he can lead stage one all the way through, he's right at the top of the final stage. And for those who are not aware, stage one winner will start first, stage two winner starts second, stage three winner will start third. And then we have the pit stop competition winner starts fourth.
Right. So we have some gimmicks to work through this weekend, but it's not as bad as previous years because I believe it was last year and the year before we had like lottery picks for where they're randomizing the start on the certain stages. We have guys getting inverted. This year, they're kind of rewarding drivers that are performing well during the race. So it's not as bad as it has been previously, which I do like.
I do want to mention this question we got over to score right before the show started from Logan saying heaviest owned driver and a sleeper pick based on the 20 drivers already in the field.
Yeah, so for me, the driver I'm heaviest on as of right now, I have not finalized my lineups. Obviously, I can't even really crunch for DraftKings yet, but I know for sure Denny Hamlin's going to be my highest owned driver. Over on FanDuel, Hamlin's going to be my highest owned driver as well. I hate to call anybody underpriced because everybody's cheap on this slate, but for $9,200 and 10.5 over on FanDuel, he was the fastest car in practice on Saturday evening, first in the 1 lap, second in the 5 lap, and second in the 10 lap. And he's had a blazing fast car this year, just a lot of bad luck to show for it. But all the Toyotas showed out last weekend. I have to assume he's going to be a top 5 contender here with the lack of laps. I'm not really concerned about him not being able to lead too many laps. So loving Denny Hamlin. As far as the sleeper picks, someone I'm kind of getting to quite a bit is Martin Truex Jr. right below him at $9,000. The JGR cars are going to be quite popular. Everyone's playing that Bell price point. Everyone's playing Busch in the poll. And I think and obviously everyone's playing Hamlin, but Truex might be the guy that gets slightly overlooked. He was 5th in the 1 lap practice, fell all the way down to 15 in the 5 lap. I'm not too concerned about that. I think the JGR cars are going to be fast, and plus Truex always seems to show out at nighttime. So hoping he gets a little bit overlooked, and I certainly want to be overweight.
Of course, if you do got any questions, you can line up over here, right here on YouTube, also in our Discord chat as well. Of course, be sure to like this video. It does help us out a ton if you're not subscribed to Awesemo right here on YouTube. Be sure to do that. Of course, hit that notification bell so you know when the show is live here on the channel. Of course, coming up here later on today, 8 p.m. Eastern time, we got NBA Live for Lock to get you ready for Game 3 of Warriors and Mavs. As someone who lives on the East Coast, I wish that game was a little earlier in the day, Chris. It's getting kind of late for old man Jason to be up here on Sunday night. Someone's got to get up early on a Monday morning. But it'd be a little split screen for me watching the NASCAR race, but also watching the NBA as well. So let's get right into the upper tier salaries that we do every time here on Live for Lock. So these are drivers who are 9K and above, and so you got Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr. Of course, all these drivers are in the field, which kind of helps breaking this down a little bit easier here. Kyle Larson, he's starting for $10,000 on DraftKings, $13,500 on FanDuel, looking for back-to-back here with the All Star race.
Yeah, he's been amazing at All Star races. He did not race the year previous, so we're excluding that for him. So it has been like 2 in a row for Kyle Larson. Looking for the three-peat here. And it could certainly happen. I do like Kyle Larson quite a bit. I know he's the most expensive driver, so it's not as easy to fit him in, but the pricing is overall pretty soft, so it's not going to be that hard to fit in Larson if you want to. So I definitely plan on being overweight in tournaments. Probably not getting there in cash games, but he was fast in practice, 2nd in the 1 lap, 5th in the 5 lap, and then 1st in the 10 lap, which I always like to look to the most just to see who's got some long run speed. But the thing is, not really a long run race with the 4 stages we have, so we'll see how much that comes into play. But any single time we're at an intermediate track, you have to have interest in Kyle Larson. The past 5 races at intermediates, he has finished no worse than 2nd and a 10th place finish at Vegas last year. 2nd at Kansas last weekend, almost won that race until Kurt Busch passed him at the end. 2nd at Vegas, 1st Auto Club, and just won the most recent race here at Texas. So hard not to like him, and he just always seems to shine when the lights are on the brightest. So I definitely like Kyle Larson quite a bit here as a potential tournament dominator.
Yeah, you speak about him last week. If anyone who watched his post-race interview, he was basically saying, yeah, I knew I didn't have the fastest car. I was just trying to hold off as long as I possibly could. I mean, even the broadcasters were saying, I mean, the line that he was picking, he was just trying to hold off as long as he could. But, that's one of those things he just realized, and we've talked about over the course of the season with the next gen car of the differences, in terms of, the data we have from previous years to the data we have this year. I mean, Kyle Larson's not getting the wins, but he's still up there every week.
Yeah, just to kind of speak on the difference from last year's car and this season's car with the next gen. So last season, intermediates, he's averaging well over 100 laps led per race and over 40 fast laps. No one was even close to him. If you look at the 2022 numbers in specific, we're talking 17 laps led per race and 13 fast laps, and he's kind of like a fringe top 5 dominator. So it's definitely been a big difference for him. They do not have the edge that they had last year, but he's still picking up really good finishes, just does not have the top car like he had last season.
Of course, the second most expensive driver will be Chase Elliott. He is starting 13th, 9,700 on DraftKings, 13,000 on FanDuel. So when you're talking about a smaller field, which I think is also something to note here, this isn't a 40-card field. It's a much smaller field. 13th, you got some place differential there, Chris.
Yeah, so if you think about him starting 13th in a small field, you can kind of picture it as him starting like around the mid-20s. So to give you a better picture for this weekend's race, because we're kind of cut in half. But yeah, for a shorter race where dominator points aren't going to be that important, I think that definitely makes Chase Elliott a very good grab here, starting in 13th. He's had one of the best cars so far this season, putting up a fantastic year all around at pretty much every single track type. I'm definitely a big fan of Chase Elliott here. I think you could make a case for him in cash games. I would prefer Kyle Busch because I think he's going to pick up those extra dominator points and probably finish in the top 3, which could outscore Chase Elliott as long as he doesn't get into the top 3 and pick up fast laps. So definitely like Chase Elliott quite a bit. Again, you can make a case for him in cash games, but I just think he's a good overall play.
I mean, speaking about Kyle Busch, of course, starting on the pole, 9,500 on DraftKings, 12,500 on FanDuel. And of course, you mentioned the fact of this is a guy who could lead, that entire first stage. And then because of, the winner of the first stage, you start first in the final stage. And while we mentioned there's not a ton of dominator points out there, I mean, look, someone's got to get him.
Right. And I do think Kyle Busch is in the best chance to do that. He was solid in practice, 3rd in the 1 lap, 8th in the 5 lap, kind of fell off there. But the JGR car has been very, very fast in intermediates this season, super fast at Vegas, and they crushed it last week. I think all the JGR cars finished inside the top 6, if I remember correctly. And I believe every single Toyota finished inside the top 10. They were absolutely on fire. Now we have a similar track type. This weekend is lower tire wear, but hard to imagine the JGR cars aren't going to have a good run here. And his pit team has been really good this year. I think there's a good chance he wins this race, and he's been amazing intermediates so far this season, and he was last year. So you can sign me up for all the Kyle Busch. Would definitely be one of my highest owned drivers, even though he is currently projecting for me to be arguably the highest owned driver as well.
And then you got Denny Hamlin, a driver that you already mentioned here. He is starting 16th, 9,200 on DraftKings, 10,500 on FanDuel. Once again, you're talking about a guy who's going to be towards the back of the field.
Yeah, Denny Hamlin's probably my favorite play on the slate just in terms of safety, and he's got plenty of upside as well. He had the fastest car in practice, put up the best 1 lap in practice, finished P2 in the 5, P2 in the 10. Like I said, I like all the Toyotas. I like all the JGR cars. He's got a good price on both sites, 92 on DK, only 10.5 over on FanDuel. I imagine he's going to be a top 2, top 3 ownership driver, so you are going to have to eat a lot of chalk with that. But I do think it's good chalk and rather good different elsewhere. He's been fast all season, just had a lot of bad luck, but it kind of changed a little bit last week.
Something to note, our ownership has been updated over at Awesemo.com. So if you're an Awesemo Plus member, you can check those ownership figures out now. The top driver tool has been posted as well. Of course, we'll have to see how the All-Star Open goes in terms of those other drivers that are going to be a part of this field. And of course, if you want to get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content we have out there for nearly every DFS sport, you got to sign up for Awesemo Plus. Pass includes full access to all the premium content tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, lineup builder, our premium Discord channel, and so much more. And if you're a new user of Awesemo Plus Platinum, we have got a great offer for you. As you can save 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, all you have to do is click the link in the video description below to activate this offer, or you can head to our join page and use the promo code NASCAR LBL, all caps, one word. That's NASCAR LBL for 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Again, this is for new users only, so a great opportunity to jump on board here. And of course, if you're only interested in playing NASCAR DFS, we do have NASCAR Plus NASCAR packages. They start as low as $9.95 weekly. Of course, Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included in our base packages, but can easily be added at checkout. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. And of course, that top driver tool is a tool that I'm looking at every single week. And, for the most part, obviously this is a different race here today, but generally speaking, that top driver tool, I'm looking at Dominator, top 6, that type of thing. Obviously, looking at projections, and ownership projection as well of where we can get there in terms of this field. The other 9,000 driver we have here is Martin Truex Jr. He's starting 7th, 9,000 on DraftKings, 11,500 over there on FanDuel. You've already kind of brought his name up already.
Yeah, I'm hoping people kind of overlook Truex because everyone's going to like Hamlin. Everyone's going to like Busch on the pole. Everyone always likes Larson and Elliott. And then you have some other drivers priced below him that are going to be quite popular. It doesn't really offer you too much place differential upside, but I think kind of skipping him over would be a mistake. I mean, he's been very fast at intermediates this year. Finished 6th at Kansas, 8th at Vegas. Honestly, could have won that race at Vegas if it wasn't for the late caution. And it's a night race. We all kind of like playing Truex. The night races tend to bode well for him. So I can definitely get aboard at only $9,000. It's basically just an ownership for me because if he's going to be overlooked on a small slate, I definitely want to get overexposed to Truex.
And of course, we'll move down to the mid range. That'll be the drivers who are the 8. We'll go with the under 9,000 to 7,000 range here. And then, of course, we'll get to 6,000 in the lower range. Let's talk about that mid tier. First off, we got William Byron. He's starting 3rd, 800 on DraftKings, 12,000 on FanDuel. Practice times. Are you a little concerned?
Just a little bit, because they definitely were not up to par. And it wasn't like it was a Hendrick issue in total. Alex Bowman was also very slow in practice, but Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson put up some pretty fast times. So I am a little concerned about it, but at the same time, it's similar track types this year. William Byron has had a fast car like the past 2 weeks. Very fast last week and actually got up front, but then ended up having I believe it was a flat tire that made him finish 16th, I believe. And then the week prior to Darlington, which isn't really a similar track to Texas so much, but he was up front for that race, could have won it, and then Joe Logano dumped him at the end. So kind of a bad luck stretch here for William Byron, but at $8,800, it seems like a good value to me. I know everybody's cheap, but he's been great this year when he's not getting wrecked out. I mean, 3 top 5s, one of the best drive ratings, one of the best running positions in the entire field, and some of the most DraftKings points per race, maybe a little bit inflated from what he did at Martinsville, where he had nearly 150 DraftKings points. But I think at that price and that starting position, he definitely has a chance to be an overlooked dominator for this race.
You know, when we talk about the driver bandwagons you've gotten on this year, and all of us on NASCAR DFS have gotten on, Ross Chastain, that bandwagon, it's pretty full. I mean, I don't know if the bus could get any more people on the Ross Chastain bandwagon. He's starting 6th here, 8,600 on DraftKings, 11,000 on FanDuel. Look, he's been a great guy for DFS this year.
Yeah, is he going to get hyped up every single week? Yes, but does he deserve it? Absolutely. He has been on fire this year. 49 DraftKings points per race, 4 top 5s, which is on par with guys like Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, all those guys, and actually better than some of the names I just mentioned. He is having a fantastic season. A couple of times he's had some issues where it kind of kills his day, but I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's had one of the best cars in the field. The one thing I want to mention is that earlier in the season, JGR was kind of struggling, and I think Chastain was kind of capitalizing on that. So if JGR has completely turned it around, like they did last weekend, where you kind of saw Ross Chastain run around 5th to 8th place. So maybe he's not going to be a complete top level guy, but if he can still, produce top 5 finishes and pick up fast laps, $8,600 starting in 6th, I still think he has a chance to get up front in these races. He certainly has the capabilities to do that. And I think he's a great play in this slate. I would not mind playing him in cash or tournaments.
Next up, you got Joey Logano, who is starting 9th, 8,400 on DraftKings, 9,500 on FanDuel.
So I've kind of liked just about all the drivers we've talked about so far. I'm going to change my tune here a little bit on Joey Logano. I'm just not a huge fan of the Fords for this race. They just really haven't shown they can compete too much. I know Joey Logano just ended up dominating at Darlington, but he did not have the best car there. But the Fords have not nearly been as good as Chevys and Toyotas so far this season. So I do have my concerns. Practice wasn't bad for him, though. 9th in the 1 lap, 10th in the 5 lap. I don't think he's going to have a bad day, but starting in 9th, right below him, you have guys like Alex Bowman. You have Tyler Reddick, who should start somewhere in the 20s, assuming he ends up advancing. So it's going to be hard for me to click on Joey Logano. He's someone I'm probably going to get a little bit underweight on.
Next up, we have got Alex Bowman, who is starting 20th, 8,200 on DraftKings, 8,500 on FanDuel. And we're talking about the back of the field at this point.
Yeah, for all the confirmed drivers, he is starting dead last. Now, on paper, that seems excellent. I was looking at our ownership projections that just popped up. It looks like, as of right now, he's projecting to be the highest owned driver. I know they haven't projected the open drivers in yet, so that could change a little bit. But on paper, it would look like a really good play. You're getting a Hendrick car at a low 8K price point starting dead last as of right now. It's not going to be dust once the race starts. But I have my concerns. This could be a bit of a trap play here. He was 20th in the 1 lap, 19th in the 5 lap. He was complaining about his car during Saturday's session. So, yes, he is starting in the back, But if he finishes around like 13th to 16th, that's not going to get it done. I think he's going to be a little bit over-owned. So I'm definitely going to try to take an underweight approach on Bowman. Should you play him in cash games? Sure. I have no problem with that. But in tournaments, I think this is a good spot to get a little bit underweight in the field for sure.
So now we get to the first driver who is not currently in the field, but he's on the pole to start the Open here, and that's Tyler Reddick. He's 8,000 over on DraftKings, of course, no price on FanDuel. And just kind of give a note of how they're going to start this race here, which starts here in under 10 minutes from now. So it'll go Tyler Reddick will be on the pole. Then it'll be Daniel Suarez, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Aric Jones, Chris Buescher, Justin Haley, Austin Dillon, Corey LaJoie, Harrison Burton, Cole Custer, Landon Castle, Ty Dillon, Cody Ware, Todd Gillian, Garrett Smithley, and BJ McCloy. So kind of give you an idea. We're going to be monitoring this as we go on. But Tyler Reddick, I do know you're kind of expecting him to get into the field here tonight, and he's someone you like.
Yeah, I should have mentioned this to you. There was some new news that did drop where he actually has to go to the rear now for the Open race.
Oh, okay.
So that does make it a little bit interesting, but he had the fastest car yesterday, so I still think he's going to make it. Originally, when I did some content yesterday, I mentioned it where I think we should just pencil him in for P21 because I assume he's going to dominate the first stage. Now he's going to the rear. So I still think he advances. He's going to be, at least I assume he's going to be the fastest driver during that race, but he's going to have to work his way through the field a little bit. So maybe he ends up starting a couple spots further back. It's a very minuscule difference, so it's not going to matter either way. Assuming he makes it in, Tyler Reddick will be one of the best plays. He's had a super fast car this season. The problem is he just tends to like the wall a little bit too much, which kind of ends his day early on sometimes. We saw that last weekend where he killed you, but then the week prior at Darlington ended up crushing it. So assuming he makes it in, the path got a little bit tougher for him, but $8,000 starting in anywhere from 21st to 24th, you're going to have to like him. And he actually won the Texas race in one of the lower series, I believe, yesterday. So gives him some extra bump as well.
So Reddick and Haley are going to the rear for the Open, Bowman to the rear for unapproved adjustments, which Bowman, I mean, he was pretty much at the rear anyway. So not a huge effect there. Bob saying Bowman felt an issue at the rear of the car during practice, and the team took a look and found an issue and fixed it. Fixing it meant dropping to the rear for the main event. And so with the Reddick going to the rear in the Open, Suarez is a control car and starts the race from the outside row. Stenhouse is on the inside of front row. So give you a little something there to kind of think about there in terms of our thoughts in that. Next up, we do know we have a driver that is in the field confirmed. That's Ryan Blaney. He's starting second, 7,900 on DraftKings, 10,000 over there on FanDuel. Kind of a low rate here for Ryan Blaney in terms of salary.
Yeah, like I said, everyone's cheap on this slate, so I hate to call anybody cheap, but for Ryan Blaney, he is cheap. Like when you compare him to these other drivers, you can, I think you can just say that he is a little bit underpriced, even though everyone's kind of softly priced here. I mean, $7,100 for a guy as good as Texas that Ryan Blaney is, and he was very fast in practice, pulling up some of his practice speeds. He was fourth in the 1 lap, first in the 5 lap, and third in the 10 lap. I know I said I wasn't a big fan of the Fords on this slate, but Ryan Blaney is going to be the one I make an exception for. Am I being biased? Maybe. I do like Ryan Blaney quite a bit. I think everybody knows that. But at this price point, you got to take advantage because, yes, he's starting second. I think Kyle Busch is the one that dominates early on. But if Blaney can hang around the top 3 all day, pick up some fast laps here and there, hard for him not to pay off at a sub 8K price point.
Next 2 drivers are both a pair of drivers that'll try to make their way into the main event. Aric Jones and Daniel Suarez. Of course, just mentioned about Daniel Suarez. So he's 7,600. Aric Jones is 7,700, and Aric Jones will be starting third here.
Yeah, so heading into this, before the stream, there was 4 drivers and I expected to probably advance. I thought it was going to be Suarez. I thought Aric Jones would make it. I thought Stenhouse, and I thought Reddick would make it. So that's my assumption. Obviously, the fan vote, I have no idea who they're going to pick. Maybe they pick Corey LaJoie because he has a podcast. I'm not totally sure. But I do think it's pretty likely we see Aric Jones or Daniel Suarez end up making it in. If either one of them makes it, I mean, they're going to be starting in the low 20s. They're going to have place differential upside. Both guys have shown top 10, top 15 potential this year. They're just going to be guys that I'll have to roster in the back just to, they're cheap enough and it makes things work up top.
Then we
the
got
podcast narrative. Oh, I was just saying, that's the first time I've ever heard someone go with a podcast narrative for rostering someone, but that's the analysis what we're here for, Chris. I love it.
Oh, we gotta find a narrative somewhere. Paint scheme, baby alert.
It works.
We got a popular podcast. I mean, we just got to find some narrative.
And it works, man. NASCAR is full on narratives. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm going to keep riding the wave.
Look, I feel like if you're a NASCAR driver, just get a hot TikTok channel going for you.
Right.
And I feel like you would be a lock to get the fan vote.
Right. Exactly. Like, that's why I think Corey LaJoie's got a chance for it. I'm not sure if there's odds on who's going to win the fan vote, but I think there's a chance for it.
Guarantee there is a sports book out there that's taking action on that.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
I mean, come on. There is lines that get thrown out there about anything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, call it the Gatorade for the Super Bowl. They'll do just about anything to take in money.
I mean, come on. How many people were betting on cornhole during the pandemic?
I'm not sure I could ever go down that low, but I see Tyler's raising his hand.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that at all. That Tyler bet on cornhole, not at all. We mentioned about Austin Dillon. Did we mention about Christopher Bell?
We're about to.
Christopher Bell starting 14th, 7,500 on DraftKings, 9,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I just think he's too cheap. I like all the JGR cars. We didn't get much out of practice for him. He's kind of off early on, 15th in the one lap, but I got to imagine he's going to be pretty fast during the race, because if you like all the JGR cars, like all the Toyotas, you can't just completely skip over Christopher Bell. He had an amazing race last weekend. Looked like he got off to a hot start, and then he had an issue. I thought his day was going to get killed, ended up working his way all the way back up close to the front, ended up having a good day, was optimal. Starting in 14th, I like this price point. I think you can play him in cash games. I think you can play him in tournaments. He has not had a large career here at Texas in the Cup Series, but he does have an average finish of 9th, over 50 DraftKings points per race, and a couple of top 5s. I am certainly on board for Christopher Bell in this slate.
Next up, we have got Austin Dillon, who is currently not in this field. So he's 7,400 on DraftKings. And Logan over to Score had mentioned, he says, I like Dillon to make it in, which I'm guessing means Austin. It says, if he does, is he a solid play?
Yeah, anybody that's going to make it from the open race, assuming it's not like a scrub driver, and I don't really expect that to happen. But if Austin Dillon makes it in, you can certainly play him. I'm not currently projecting that to happen, but he would be the next guy in if one of the 4 I mentioned don't make it in, because Dillon, one of the best drivers at intermediates as far as just being consistent. And actually, the past 6 races at Texas, he's finished inside the top 15 each and every single time with an average finish of 10.5. So it's really as simple as whoever makes it from the open race, I like them as a PD play, especially if it's Dillon or the other 3 that I mentioned.
Of course, the cars are now on the track, so they'll be starting the open race here in about another minute or so. Next up, we got Kevin Harvick, who is in the main event. He is starting 15, 7,300 on DraftKings, 7,500 over on FanDuel.
Yeah, again, I'm not huge on mentioning track history so far this year, but it's the All-Star Race, so we don't have many talking points. I will say Kevin Harvick is amazing at Texas. Had two wins, 4 top 5s, and 5 top 10s the past 6 races here. But he hasn't really shown like top level speed this year. Is he very consistent at getting great finishes? Sure. If you're looking at his numbers so far this year, an average finish of 8.6, which is actually the best of all drivers using the data set that I'm looking at, close to 50 DraftKings points per race. The problem is he's just not dominating, 0.3 laps led per race. But on the bright side, $7,300, you don't have to dominate to be optimal. He's starting in 15th. I think he's a fine, cheaper place differential play.
Then we got Chase Briscoe. He is starting 11th. He is 7,200 on DraftKings, 65 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I'm not going to plan on getting to too much Briscoe here. Just starting in 11th, I would rather just play the open drivers that happen to make it in, because we're going to have a lot more place differential upside. And I think Briscoe is going to be a fringe top 12, top 15 car here. So it's just not going to present me enough upside. And like I said, I'm going to be kind of lower on the Fords.
Next up, you got a driver who is trying to make his way into the field. That's Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 7,100 on DraftKings.
Yeah, so he's one of the guys I am planning on making it in. He has been kind of hot the past few weeks now, earlier in the season. Yeah, for a good portion of the season, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was just a money pit where if you kept playing him, you were going to lose money because he sucked every single week. I believe it's the past 3 weeks now where Stenhouse has actually been very good for your launch. He's made the optimal a couple of times. And if he happens to make it from the open, we're talking about one of the best place differential drivers on the slate at a pretty nice price point. So if he makes it in, I can certainly get on some Stenhouse.
And that's one of the things to point out of all these drivers that we're now going to start talking about that are trying to make their way into the main event of all of a sudden you look at them and, because a lot of these drivers, well, they're all 8,000 and under. So there's becomes that value place differential type thought process.
Yeah, because the cheap drivers that are already locked into this race, I mean, we're talking Michael McDowell, Allmendinger, they're not very appealing, and people don't want to play these guys. So I am just, whoever makes the open, they're going to be those guys that are going to pick up a lot of ownership, but rightfully so because they make things work.
And by the way, just to kind of mention about Ricky Stenhouse, in his last 3 weeks, 59 points, 56 points, 65 points, and the highest salary he's been in those 3 weeks is $7,000. I mean, we joke about it every week here about, you know, the risk when you're getting into the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. business, but man, he has been solid the last 3 weeks.
And the thing is, it's not like these are random racetracks like a Bristol Dirt or a Talladega where crazy things happen. This is just straight up him getting good finishes at real tracks, intermediates, tracks that we can kind of compare Texas to. So it's been legit, and he's hot right now. At some point, it's going to stop being hot, and he's going to cool off, and it's going to be a money pit again. But maybe it's time to kind of ride the wave with Stenhouse right now.
Yeah, I'll be riding that money train, and then when it doesn't come in, I'll be. Why the hell did I put in my lineup? Next up, we got Kurt Busch. He's starting 5th, 7,000 on DraftKings, 8,000 over on FanDuel.
Yeah, speaking of narratives, like he was fast in practice last weekend, but a big part of the reason I played Kurt Busch was because he had an amazing paint scheme. I was going with the paint scheme narrative last weekend, ended up paying off quite nice. Nearly 110 DraftKings points, absolutely killed it, won the race. He's in a similar spot once again. He's in the low 7K range. He's starting around the top 5. He's actually starting 5th exactly. And practice was solid for him. He wasn't as fast as he was last weekend at Kansas, but 11th in the 1 lap, 6th in the 5 lap, 4th in the 10. He's got some good numbers at Texas. I think there's no reason where he can't just kind of ride around the top 5, top 6 all day and maybe pick up a fast lap here and there. And if he does that at 7K, I think he's one of the better cheap drivers on this slate. Like, I'd rather play Kurt Busch over the next 2 drivers we're about to talk about.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about those drivers here in a moment, but do want to let you know that the NASCAR Live 4 Lock Show is sponsored by PrizePicks. Of course, use that promo code Awesemo for an instant first match deposit up to $100. Of course, use your knowledge on multiple sports with cross sports entries. Of course, click the link in the video description below to head to prizepicks.com or download the PrizePicks app in the App Store or on Google Play. And mentioning about the Busch brothers, those are 2 of the props that I know you do like over there at PrizePicks. They've gone up a little bit over there. Just pulling up my PrizePicks app over here right now. Kyle Busch still sitting 46.5. Kurt Busch at one point was 30.5. He is now 32.5.
Yeah, we definitely lost some value on Kurt Busch, but as far as Kyle Busch goes, he's the driver I'm projecting to win this race. So if he wins, and assuming they picks up some laps led and fast laps, he's going to hit that mark. If you don't think Kyle Busch wins, it's probably not a good bet, but he's probably the guy that I'm projecting to do so. And I wasn't finding a lot of value over on PrizePicks, so I was kind of having to stretch who I like, and we already lost a lot of value on Kurt Busch, who I like a lot at 30.5. Now he's up to, I believe you said 34?
Yeah.
Yeah,
32.
Yep.
He's at 32.5 now.
32.5. Okay, that's not as bad as 34 because 32.5, we're talking about a top 9 finish. I definitely think he's capable of doing that, especially with a smaller field. So still feel good about Kurt, even though that number did come up a little bit.
Christopher Bell was the other one you mentioned to me. I want to say when you hit me up about this, the number was 34.5. When I wrote down, it was 36.5. It is now 38.5.
Yeah, they definitely opened way too low on Christopher Bell. I mean, we like all the GHGR cars. You have to assume they're going to have some speed, and all he needed to get over 34 was like a top 12. Now at 38.5, we're talking about a top 8, top 9, top 10, mixing some fast laps. I still think that's a good number on Bell. He's starting 14th. Obviously, a good play over on the DFS sites, but over on PrizePicks, I think we can kind of bet on Bell being a top 10 contender. So I do think you're still getting a decent number, but it's not nearly as good as it was.
And by the way, the Open Stage 1 race has started. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Has taken the lead as they are now on lap number 3. And someone just said, he goes, "Are we on Recce today?" I mean, look, if he leads these 20 laps, he's in the field.
Right. Yeah, it looks like, just turn it on right now. I'm seeing lap 2. I'm probably way behind because I'm streaming it. But as long as this stays green, you're probably going to end up seeing Stenhouse advance, which that means he'll be starting 21st. And I would be perfectly fine playing Stenhouse there.
And by the way, Reddick is already the 10th.
Yeah, he's probably going to advance. He's got a fast car.
For those who are not aware, he was supposed to be on the pole, has to go to the rear, and he's already gone through half the field.
Yeah, I think he's going to find his way up there with an amount of laps. So we should be good there.
So as we look at the rest of the drivers on the slate, so the lower tier, so all these drivers will be underneath 7,000. First off, we'll start off with Austin Cindric. He's starting 12, 6,900 on DraftKings, 7,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, so Austin Cindric's a guy where I like the price point, sure, below 7K, and practice wasn't bad for him. 7th in the 5 lap, 6th in the 10 lap. His teammate Ryan Blaney was very fast in practice. Problem is, I don't like that 12 starting spot. I don't think he's going to present us a ton of upside, but I will say it's some similar tracks this year. Finished 11th at Kansas last weekend, which was good. 19th at Vegas, 12th at Auto Club. I kind of project him to kind of finish right around where he starts. I do think he loses some spots. Not the worst play in the world, but again, these open drivers definitely look a lot more appealing.
Next up, we got Brad Keselowski. He's starting 6,800 on DraftKings, 5,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, Kess I would rather get to over Austin Cindric, and especially over on FanDuel, where you're getting a $1,500 discount only at $5,500, plus you get locked in place differential upside starting at 18th. And since FanDuel doesn't have those open drivers, he's going to be one of the better place differential guys just as far as starting position goes over on the site. If you're looking at what he did in practice, it wasn't terrible. 11th in the 5 laps, 16 in the 1. And he did finish, I believe, 14th at Kansas last weekend, which is a pretty similar track to Texas. So not a bad play, not a super exciting play, because I just don't really like playing Kess too much outside of super speedways, but I'm willing to get some shares.
Next up, you got Chris Buescher. He's 6,700. Of course, he's in the stage right now to get in this race, and he is currently in second.
Yeah, it looks like he's actually closing too. At least I believe I just saw him. He was 0.2 behind. I might be behind you guys.
Yeah. He's right now 0.33.
Okay, so he was about 0.5 back. So he might actually gain on Stenhouse. And if Buescher makes it in, he was not someone I was really expecting to. But if he happens to make it, I am perfectly fine with that. Chris Buescher is one of those drivers that is typically pretty consistent. Did finish 27th last weekend, but had an issue which kind of killed his day. 18th in Vegas. Then another issue at Auto Club earlier in the season where he finished 35th. But if he makes it in, I mean, there's a good chance he contends for a top 15, so I wouldn't mind that.
Then you got Bubba Wallace. He is in the field. He's starting 17th. He's 6,500 on DraftKings, 6,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, it feels like a similar play to last weekend. I believe he was starting, might have been around 20th. He was around there somewhere. But either way, everyone kind of liked Toyota last weekend. I like Toyota once again, but Bubba Wallace is kind of that forgotten guy, which I totally get because I don't really like playing Bubba too much anyway. But if you like all the Toyotas, you like the JGR cars, you like his teammate Kurt Busch, you can't completely dismiss Bubba Wallace. So I think Bubba is one of those guys in tournaments that's going to get overlooked on this slate because why play Bubba when I can play some of those open drivers that are starting in the 20s? So as far as tournaments go, I think Bubba's a pretty good target.
Next up, you got Cole Custer, who's 6,400 on DraftKings, and right now he is currently running in 11th.
Yeah, I don't think we can really plan on Cole Custer making this race. If you want to talk about him, he finished 22nd last week. About the nicest thing I can say. If he makes it in, he's probably going to finish around last, but I don't think he's going to make this race.
By the way, Todd Reck is all the way up to 6th now.
Yeah, I think
halfway through.
Yeah, he'll be good.
Yeah. Stenhouse still leading, by the way. Next up, we got Aric Almirola. He's starting 6,300 on DraftKings, 5,000 on FanDuel.
And it looks like also, just to piggyback on that, Stenhouse is pulling away from Buescher now. So as long as it stays green, it looks like Stenhouse will end up making it. So we're getting another round of Stenhouse chalk, which we know how that usually ends, but it's been fun the past few weeks. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, Aric Almirola, he's confirmed in for this race. He's starting at 8th. That's the only problem here. It does make me have some hesitations, but I do feel like he's going to go completely overlooked. And there's a chance he can hang around the top 10 all day. And if he does that at $6,300, it's not bad if those open drivers just don't happen to move much. He finished 6th at Vegas early in the season, 6th in the Auto Club. He's got a really good history at Texas. I believe 4 top 10s the past 6 races here, which is oddly good for him, especially at this price point. Average finish 11.3 here. So I don't hate Almirola, but practice kind of made it seem like he's going to be around a 15-place car. Yeah,
the Stenhouse lead just continues to grow here, so something we'll monitor there. Justin Haley, 6,200. I don't know if you really want to mention much. Do we not have a podcast narrative to throw out there? How you can get a fan vote?
I don't think we have a podcast narrative. I don't. If there's a narrative for Justin Haley, someone can tell me. I'd love to hear it. I'd be interested in it. But he is right now P8 behind Harrison Burton. I believe he had to start in the rear for the open race, so he has made some gains, but it's going to be a tough path for him. But he did pass Burton just now on my screen, so maybe he inches his way there, but I don't see it happening.
And Tyler Reck now in 5th place. So he continues to make his way up the field here. AJ Allmendinger, he is in the field. He's starting 10th, 6,000 on DraftKings, 4,500 on FanDuel.
Dinger's kind of interesting because do I want to play him starting in 10th? I don't, but also in practice, he was 10th in the 1 lap and 9th in the 5 lap. If he's able to hold his ground and finish in the top 10, he's going to be one of those guys that nobody wants to play that might be able to sneak into the optimal lineup if some of these place differential guys fail. So it's dependent. Like Dinger doesn't look like a great play, but if those place differential guys fail, Dinger's going to end up being a better play. So it's just going to have to be a narrative that you run with.
So 5 of the next 6 drivers are not in the field. So let's mention the driver who is in the field. That's Michael McDowell, 19th, 5,600 on DraftKings, 4,000 on FanDuel.
So McDowell definitely has place differential upside. The problem is, as of right now, I'm probably projecting him to finish last or close to last as far as this race goes, because once we get the open drivers in, who, I mean, just kind of guess there, it's going to be like a Stenhouse, a Buescher, Suarez, or Dillon, or a Reddick. I have all those guys finishing above Michael McDowell, assuming they make the race. I think McDowell probably finishes last as long as there's no issues. So he's just someone I'm probably not going to get too much.
I mean, you mentioned about the narrative of Corey LaJoie. Maybe he gets the fan vote because of having a popular podcast, but you got Harrison Burton, Ty Dillon, Corey LaJoie, Todd Gillian, Landon Castle. Obviously, I guess they probably need the fan vote to get in.
Yeah, and they're not going to get it either. I mean, no one likes Cody Ware. No one likes Landon Castle enough to him to get voted over any of these other guys. So, and they're all running from like 12th to 16th right now in the open race. So there's just about no chance they make it unless there's a mass wreck, which I don't see happening.
Yeah, we have 4 laps to go right now, and the Stenhouse lead just continues to grow. 1.39 is now the lead there. Buescher in second, Suarez in third. Austin Dillon in fourth, Reddick in fifth. So looking like Ricky Stenhouse and the Ricky Stenhouse chalk is going to be in there. Of course, on the betting side of it, obviously Kyle Larson's got to be someone everyone's going to be looking at. I want to say it was 6-1 when I was looking a little earlier today.
Yeah, they posted some updated odds yesterday after practice. It didn't change much. I have not looked at it yet since. I don't think it would have changed much because there wasn't any news that really dropped unless people really bet up a bet or bet up a driver. But yeah, I like Larson at plus 600. I mean, he just has a knack for winning these all-star races. And I also like Kyle Busch a lot because I'm assuming Kyle Busch wins stage 1. If he does that, he's going to be set up quite nicely for the final stage to potentially win the race.
Yeah, of course, we're 2 laps to go here. And just seems like a formality here, unless Ricky Stenhouse loses control of his car. Maybe I just curse him there, but it looks like he'll be one in there. And I guess we get ready for the Ricky Stenhouse chalk coming.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think he was going to start 21st. I thought it was going to be more so 22nd to 24th. But I mean, one spot further up is not going to make a huge deal here. He has place differential. He's been hot the past several weeks, and he obviously looks good in the open right now. So yeah, I see no reason why you wouldn't like Stenhouse here.
Of course, you got any questions, start lining those up in the chat right now. Of course, love to see those winning screenshots. I want to see you go into the Awesemo Hall of Fame. Of course, you got to be rocking that Awesemo avatar, all your DFS profile. Place in the top 3 of the contest with over 5,000 contestants. Tweet your wins to that Awesemo HOF. You win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Only 1 free month can be awarded to a user per calendar year. Congratulations to Braden with his same game parlay, taking an 8-legger down for plus 2,800. Kudos to you there, what you were able to do there last night there. Also, congratulations to Chris taking down first place in NBA contest over there on FanDuel. Jeremy taking down first place in the MLB contest over there on FanDuel. Also, Kingslayer taking down first place last night over there on DraftKings for a UFC contest. Kudos to you. Also, Justin, what he was able to do in terms of the PGA, Jordan winning first place over there in the MLB contest. So kudos to everyone that has gone into the Awesemo Hall of Fame over the past couple of days. Love to see you go into the Awesemo Hall of Fame here, coming up here today for tonight's NASCAR race. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has taken down stage number 1. He led all 20 laps, and Chris Buescher finished second. Daniel Suarez third, Austin Dillon fourth, Tyler Reddick fifth. So just Tyler Reddick, he had a fast car, but just not enough laps to get there for him.
Yeah, it's not a lock that he's going to make it, but I mean, as quick as he worked through the field, I realized there's some pretty slow cars back there. He still has to deal with Austin Dillon, Buescher, Suarez. So, I mean, it's not a guarantee that he makes it in. I'm not sure where he really stands as far as the fan vote goes. I know he's not a unliked driver or anything. So I'd say there's still a really good chance Reddick makes it in.
Yeah. Andrew said, who is the mid-range qualifier going lowest owned that can be optimal? Bell, Cindric?
I mean, they can all be optimal. It's a very random race. For me, let me pull up the ownership projections because they just dropped when we were on the show. So haven't had a chance to really look. But right now, it looks like Kurt Busch has low ownership. He's currently sitting below 15%. That might creep up a little bit after an update. But if Kurt Busch is going to be below 15%, I want to be overweight on that number because, I mean, we saw what he could do last week, and it's not out of the equation that he could win the race.
Yeah, and of course, stay tuned as we update all the ownership projections that we have over at Awesemo.com in terms of how this race is going to unfold. We'll look at stage number 2. Of course, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is now in the field. Kevin has got a question: 2v2, Bell and Blaney or Chastain and Brad?
I'm going to go with the non-Brad side there. I'll go with the Blaney and Bell, I believe it was. So I like Bell a lot, and Blaney's price point's really hard to beat. I'll go with there.
In Keselowski, I mean, not to hammer on the point that you've brought up all season long, but with a non-super speedway, it's just you're kind of, you're not excited about him.
Yeah, like he has shown some speed some races, which it's fine to play. Like I don't think he's a necessarily bad play tonight, but starting in 18, yes, it looks good on paper, but there's a real chance where he's kind of stuck around P15 to P17 all night, which isn't going to get the job done.
We always talk like a boom bust play, no matter what sport we're talking about. Is there a driver you look at today and say, you know what, God, that guy could really boom, but oh man, it could be a bust as well?
It could be Brett Keselowski, the guy we just talked about. If just to kind of stay away from him, just because we talked about it, maybe Ryan Blaney starting in P2, like his price is low, and it feels kind of weird calling a boom bust. I really don't think there's any big boom bust plays on this slate, but Blaney, if he's going to ride around in like P8, P10 all day, it's going to be a real disappointment starting in second if he can get up front or stay within the top 3.
And how much of that narrative is in relation to being a Ford right now?
Yeah, it's certainly part of it because I like all the Toyotas and I like all the, I don't like all the Chevys, but I like Team Hendrick and I like Chastain, and it's hard for me to think Blaney's going to finish above them. Like it's certainly possible. He was fast in practice, but I mean, overall manufacturer has definitely been something I've been looking at so far this year. And it's just, they've been lacking in most weeks so far this year.
And of course, stage 2 is going to be starting here very shortly. I want to say that they just did a pit stop, and I want to say it was Daniel Suarez who came out in the lead there in terms of coming out of the pit there.
Landon Castle took 2 tires and he's now P2, I will say.
I did see that he had jumped 9 spots. I just don't feel like that, Yeah, look, if you're someone like that team and your thought is, how do we get in this thing? That's probably the best path to getting in there for them.
And it's the only path, really. I'm surprised more. I didn't see how many other drivers did that. But I mean, if you're a guy that's, riding around in the back for the open race, your only chance is really to try some strategy because there's not enough time to make a long green flag run. And to be honest, those long green flag runs are not going to help them out because they're just going to sink. So at a low tire wear track like Texas, I don't think it's the worst strategy. I do think he's going to sink a bit though.
I'm sure Logan has a question that maybe some other newer NASCAR DFS players might have. Says, is the scoring different for today? Never played the All Star Race. How does the place scoring work? If someone wrecks and finishes 25th, do they still get decent points?
It's the same exact thing. You just have a smaller field. So like I can pull up my map here, which tells you finishing position points. So if you were starting in first and you happen to finish like 36, normally you're getting around negative 30 points. This weekend, if you happen to wreck and finish last, which would be 24th, you're getting negative 5 points. So the scoring's not different, but the amount of points available, because there's less drivers, it's going to be a little bit different, but the scoring is still the same.
Of course, if you do got any questions, you can line those up in chat as we go forward. We got about a little less than 10 minutes to go here. We're waiting for stage 2 to kick off here. Of course, if you're just joining the show, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he won stage 1, so he is, and he'll be in the 21st position, which get ready for that chalk. That's coming here. But I mean, when we come to the drivers who are there and looking, you mentioned about Kyle Busch as being someone that you're really on today because of obviously wins stage 1. He's right there at the front on the final stage. If it's not Kyle Busch in that first stage, who do you like?
If it's not Kyle Busch, it kind of becomes a free-for-all between Blaney, Byron, and Larson, in my opinion. If you're looking at practice numbers, Larson had the best 10-lap run, but Blaney was a little bit faster in the 5-lap because he was first and Larson was 5th. We'll see what comes into play more. I feel like Ryan Blaney might have a better short run car, but at the same time, they were all very close to each other. So we'll see what happens. Blaney starting in second. He's going to be on the front row, so you have the preferred track position. But I could see Larson being the guy that kind of overtakes it. But at the same time, you can't really compare Busch to Blaney too much because the price is pretty different.
Next question from Philip says, who's your best sleeper play on FanDuel?
So over on FanDuel, pull up the pricing there. So for me, it's kind of similar to DraftKings, but if Kurt Busch is going to pull in lower ownership, it's hard for me not to like him. He's $8,000. He's starting in fifth. Place differential is not as big of a deal there over on FanDuel. It's mainly just about finishing position. And Kurt Busch is a guy that should project well to be a good finisher. Like right now, I have him projected to finish in the top 8. If he does that, if he finishes fifth, sixth, that's going to be a pretty good day, $8,000. Because if some of those place differential drivers, like a Cindric, or not really a Cindric, like a Keselowski or Bubba Wallace, they happen to fail and finish on 15th, Kurt Busch is going to outscore them if he gets a top 10.
If Josh says, if you're primarily a cash player, is this a race you stay away from and just watch?
Well, I would recommend to probably play later overall this weekend because it's the All Star Race and it's kind of dictated by the contests, where the contests aren't nearly as big this weekend. But I still think you can play cash games. And I think right now, because starting positions aren't up, for people that played early on in the day, the main lineups, they don't actually know where these guys are starting. So there might be a slight edge for people that are paying attention, because I'm not really sure how many people are actually watching this open race to see what happens. So if you're paying attention right now, you probably have a slight edge. I think it's fine to play cash games as long as you just play I don't say the right players, but as long as you follow the general cash build rules that I would for this slate, I think you're fine.
And the second stage has started, so I'm sure we will be towards the end of stage 1 by the time we get out of here on this edition of the Awesemo.com live before lock show. Of course, we will be here next week later in the day because we got the Coca-Cola 600 race, a nighttime race. So we'll be here Memorial Day weekend. Andrew says, he goes, how many drivers would you put in a lineup that are starting in the top 6?
It's going to depend. I think you can get at least 3 of those guys in there. Like, I have no problem like playing guys like Larson, Busch, Truex, Chastain, or did he say top 6 or top 10?
Top 6.
Top 6. Okay. 4 would be pushing it for sure in the top 6. I think you can play 3 though, because Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, Kurt Busch, Ross Chastain, Kyle Larson, all fantastic plays. I think you might be able to stretch that to 4, but 3 might be kind of pushing the limit.
Right now, Corey LaJoie is on the lead here in stage 2. Suarez in second, Buescher in third, Reddick in fourth, and Jones in fifth. Let's see here. Logan says there's no need to really focus on dominators this race, with this race only being 150 laps. The drivers are more willing to take risks and crew chiefs to have different strategies, right?
It's possible, but at the same time, those dominator points, while there's not a lot of them, the guys that get a few dollar points here and there, that can make up for a position loss that other drivers don't have. Like, those are baked in points that you can't lose. Place differential guys, they can lose those points at some point during the race. So, and we're still talking 125 laps. Is that a lot? No, but they do add up. And if someone leads around 25 to 60 laps in this race, as long as they don't really just screw it up during the race, they're probably going to end up being in the optimal. And I do want to mention, Reddick was working on second place, ended up getting loose, slid back to P4. He's trying to pass Buescher as of right now on my screen. I didn't see what happened.
He has passed Buescher, yes.
He has passed Buescher? Okay. And one thing, did we miss LaJoie not pitting or something? Because I didn't see him come out first on pit road. He might have stayed out.
He might have.
Yeah. And it's working right now. He's still P1 for me, unless Suarez got him on your screen.
Yeah, right now we got LaJoie, Suarez, Buescher, Reddick. All, and by the way, they're all under, and 77 just spun out.
Perfect.
So Landon Castle, he'll be done. He's done.
You don't have to worry about him anymore, at least.
We're going to need 2 more tires.
Him anyway.
2 more tires are needed for Castle, I can confirm.
Yes.
Logan
goes, what is the easiest way to get different? There's going to be a lot of chalky lineups, I feel like.
So the best way to get different is to probably kind of bypass some of these place differential drivers. Anybody that made it in from the open is going to be chalky. Bowman's going to be chalky. Being underweight on them and grabbing some guys starting in the top 10 that have their chance to finish in the top 5, top 8 are certainly a pretty good way to go in tournaments.
Yeah, and basically Castle just lost control and went right into the wall. So do not got to worry about him. And Tim over our Discord said that Corey LaJoie did stay out. I mean, once again, if you're in this open race and if you go sit there and say, hey, you know what? If we're going to get into the main event, this may be our best way to do it.
Yeah, and if he did that, I guess he was probably not feeling too confident that fan vote get in. So maybe that podcast narrative doesn't work out too well. But he held his ground for 6 laps or 7 laps, however that long they went before that caution. So as of right now, it seems to be working. But Suarez was right there with them.
Yeah, and so, and something to note that you kind of mentioned there about Dominator points, and we can mention about Kyle Busch because I think this is a perfect narrative, is with him starting first. If he leads all 25 laps to start, then in the final stage, he starts in the pole position as well. That's where those Dominator points can really rack up for him.
Yeah, and that final stage is 50 laps too compared to 25, so it's even more potential Dominator points for Kyle Busch. And you have to assume if he's leading those laps, he's probably picking up the fast laps, and it puts him in a really good chance to win the race. Because yes, there's not a lot of Dominator points, but if you win the race, you're going to be optimal tonight. It's just not as simple as that.
Kevin brings up the question, he goes, can I play both the Bushes? That was a question that came up last week on the show. And if you did that, that worked out really well for you.
Yeah, you were a very happy camper if you did that last week, and both ended up being optimal, both finishing the top 3. I think you can do it again. It feels like almost the same exact slate for the Busch Bros once again, obviously a different racetrack, but it sets up pretty well once again.
Kyle says, he goes, what are cash play rules for this slate?
Yeah, I probably should have mentioned that when I said it. So I'm glad someone did ask. For me personally, me and Phil were talking about it on the Twitter DMs earlier. I think Kyle Busch and cash is probably the best way to go because, like I said, I think he leads the first stage, and that sets him up well for stage 4 to potentially win the race and pick up Dominator points. After that, I'm going to kind of rely on the place differential guy. So Denny Hamlin, any of the open drivers are fine. Alex Bowman makes a lot of sense. So since you're kind of selling out place differential from Kyle Busch, I like getting that place differential to balance it out after.
I mean, look, from what we've seen so far in the stage 1, early on stage 2, we would expect Tyler Reddick's going to get into this field.
Right.
And with how fast he's moving around this track and that place differential, that's got to be something that's got to be on your mindset.
Yeah. And Tyler Reddick, he's one of those drivers that I've liked just about every single week so far this year. And then I know I said they're going to be chalky, but I do think that would be good chalk for Tyler Reddick. He's probably not going to win this stage. He's probably going to have to get it done in stage 3. If he does that, he's starting 23rd. He's going to be one of the top projected drivers in the slate. He's got top 10 upside. Obviously, he has a very fast car. Yes, he's in a pretty weak field right now, so I don't think he's going to be ripping through the field in the All-Star race, but he still has top 10 potential. I would definitely be aboard Tyler Reddick for sure.
And of course, we're just got to see how these stages do play out, who gets into the field. Of course, we'll be updating our projections over at Awesemo.com. Of course, coming up in 2 hours from now, we got NBA Live Before Lock as the guys will get you ready for game 3 of tonight's Golden State Warriors and Dallas Mavericks. Hopefully the Dallas Mavericks learn how to play a little better defense in the second half than they did in game 2 because, it was, as a fan, it was a fun offensive game to watch, but stay tuned for those guys. Of course, be following Chris on Twitter for all the updates that'll come over here over the next hour or so. Appreciate everyone checking out the show. Chris, anything you want to leave the listeners with before we get out of here?
Yeah, looking forward to it, and I'm really hoping we see Kyle Busch take home $1 million tonight because I'll be heavily invested.
Of course, that is going to wrap it up for the Awesemo.com NASCAR Live Before Lock show. We'll be back here next Sunday to get you ready for the race. Have a good night, everybody.